Anytime you do a sales role play, that's always a lot of fun. There's an exercise called the anything store, and that gets at trying to ask the right questions. So you're in a store and the buyers have specific needs, but they don't share those. And it's the
Mm.
job of the seller to come in and ask all the questions. Since they're at the anything store, they have anything. And what we notice is that the students often begin and try to just sell what they think the typical solution is instead of asking the right questions and drilling down.
Hmm.
So typically you'll have a group of maybe 4 students in front of an entire class that are doing this type of scenario. We might just have other drills where we'll come up with ideas, maybe from the audience, of horrible things that you could say in a sales call and what you could do to try to recover. And so
Right.
every so often in a call, you'd have to pick up a line and
Mm.
say it, and then you'd have
Yes.
to try to recover from this. And then there's just a lot of exercises that you can do in the beginning to get your brain thinking and moving
Hmm.
fast. So there's an exercise I love to do before I go on stage. It's called the shakedown, where you start to shake out your nerves and you're yelling numbers and you're jumping up and down. And then there's also another game called Name Five Things. So you turn to the person to your left and you say something like, name 5 things that are pizza toppings, right? And the person will say, pepperoni. And then everybody in the circle around them goes, one, and they clap their hands. And then
Yeah.
they keep naming. And then what ends up happening is around 3, all of a sudden you're like, oh, I don't know any more pizza toppings.
Mm.
It doesn't matter what it is. It could be states, it could be animals, it could be, usually people get colors, okay. But all of a sudden their brain kind of freezes around
Hmm.
3. So I usually say name 5 or 6 things that are a certain type. And it's a great way to get people warmed up, to get their blood flowing.
Hmm.
And then they
Interesting.
don't realize that they're learning, but all of a sudden they're leaning in, they're focused, they're paying attention, and they're actually having a much better time because they are a little bit uncomfortable. With everybody clapping and waiting for them to say the next thing, it definitely turns the nerves on a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. But as you're saying, it gets you thinking on your feet where you don't then do this like, I don't know what to say next, which people do on role plays, they do on early sales calls. Like if they're making calls in their first week or so, like I know myself and one of the guys at Predictable Revenue like stumbled and said something that he like surprised himself, like had a total just like brain block, said something and then hung up the phone because he was like, that is not what I meant to say, couldn't recover, hung up the phone. So that is something that you definitely, that's an extreme scenario, but you definitely like encounter that feeling. And if you don't know where to go, it's terrifying. And then you have such panic and then you just can't recover. But if you've like worked this muscle where you then know how to just keep the ideas flowing, recover, kind of let it all roll off, that's such a vital skill to have in sales.
It's so true. And you don't want your first time having that experience with a customer. You want the
Yeah.
first time to be in a very safe place where it's okay to fail. You're encouraged to fail often, and fail fast. And so we try to create that environment. And I've even had my students say, like, I've never been so happy about failing
Mm.
before. And it's not like they're failing the class, but they're rewarded by putting themselves outside of their comfort zone in that safe place so they can feel that discomfort. It's the same thing with the role plays, right? It's just, you don't want the first time someone's having a sales conversation with the client, and you definitely don't want the first time that they're having that conversation, and they don't know what they're supposed to say next with the client
Mhm.
either.
Yeah, absolutely. So what did you guys learn in applying improv to sales training? What kind of impact did you see there?
Well, I always knew that it was huge. I always knew that my students, whenever they did that, that they were higher performers.
Mhm.
After, I would even have employers, they would come and they'd say, what are you feeding the kids at Bryant? And what's in the water there? They're doing so well. They're able to do role plays. They're thinking on their feet, they're adapting, they're problem solvers. And so we were kind of scratching our heads because we're like, what is this? How do we test this? What's actually happening here? And we also noticed that when women came in, they usually felt like, oh, I don't know if sales is really for me. I'm going to take the class because I heard it was going to help me, but I don't see myself as a salesperson. And then by the end of the class, they were getting jobs and they were winning competitions. And so we're just like, what is happening here? So we started to collect some data. We do some sales training and consulting with companies, but then we also do the improv training with the students. And so we were collecting the data from the men and the women. And what we were noticing was that when the women would start out in the class and come in, their level of confidence overall was lower than the guys. The guys came in and they already felt like, I can do this. Even if they weren't qualified, they felt like they could do that. Even if they had the same skill level or less, then they felt like I could absolutely do this. I'm good at this. So there was higher confidence in the men, low confidence in the women. And then also we saw the levels of empathy in the women were higher and they were lower in the men. So that was just kind of the initial finding before we did anything. We started doing the improv training and we noticed that the levels changed. So the levels of confidence in the women actually went up, but the levels of empathy in the men also went up. So it was one of those trainings where we thought, oh, this is great because it's not just helping one gender, it's actually helping everybody to perform better. So we saw a little bit of overconfidence in the men that was corrected with empathy, because when you're doing improv, you're on stage and you have to really focus and pay attention to your partners on stage to keep the game going. So you're reading body language, you're understanding nonverbals much better. You have to listen. You have to solve problems as a team, and you can't do that if you can't empathize. So we saw a sustained increase in the confidence in women and also the empathy in the men. And that was published in the Journal of Selling. There was a special issue for women in sales back in 2020.
Very cool. So I'd love to hear how to implement the improv stuff virtually. Now that we're kind of stuck, in these remote work scenarios, how, when you can't all be in the same room playing these games, how do you think that a sales team could implement the improv kind of training and practice into their virtual team life?
Sure. Well, I always love improv in person. If I ever have a choice, I always want to be in person for that because you're like walking around the room and you're using your physical body too. But when we do it online, we actually use breakout rooms. And so people can prepare and work as a team. And then they'll have to come and they'll have to do their skit or their improvisation in front of everybody. So what will typically happen is the audience will continue to get information about what's about to happen to the people that are in the other breakout room that don't get to know what's going on. And then they have to come in and they'll get direction and they'll get redirection on what they're supposed to do in this conversation that they're having. If they're trying to sell something, they might use a yes and game. So that way, every single person's line is connected by a yes and to build on the story. So you really have an audience that has just become virtual here. So it actually takes a little bit less time because you don't have to get people to get together and find their way out of the room and make sure they can't hear you when they're in a breakout room. That that's all taken care of. So some of that is actually pretty fun. And we'll also use the chat function. So we might show some images on the screen and then we'll just have the audience instead of taking themselves off mute, depending on how big the audience is, they'll start to use the chat function and we'll get some interesting and fun ideas there. So it really is a little bit different. Maybe you wouldn't feel like you were comfortable enough to yell out something in the audience, but when you're virtual, you might feel comfortable enough to say something in the chat. So
yeah,
it seems that you actually get a little bit more participation in some activities that way too.